89.7 FM with me, Winston Amwa, and Kojo Akotoboating. So, since the terrorist attack in Tetao on Saturday, resulting in the loss of lives of 8 Ghanaians. Now, on Monday, when the Interior Minister spoke to us, he told us 7 were killed with 4 injured. Now we're told another person has died, increasing the number to 8. But there's been a lot of conversation about, production of tomato in this country. When we went to the Techiman market, there were traders who were calling on government to assist them to be able to grow tomatoes so they don't have to travel all the way to Burkina Faso to get tomatoes in. So this morning we felt, okay, let's have this conversation, right? And we've been joined by the Deputy Minister of Agric and Member of Parliament for Ayawaso West Wogon, John Dumelo. John, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, boss. How are you?
God is still taking care of his children. I believe you're fine.
Amen. Yes, sir.
Good. So let's get straight into it. And over the past 3 days, the conversation is being about Ghanaian traders who were killed in Burkina Faso, but also how we can ensure that we are self-sufficient, particularly when it comes to tomato, the reason these traders were in Burkina Faso. How do we intend to do that?
Well, good morning to your listeners and good morning to everyone in the studio. It would be interesting to know that over the years, we've tried so many ways to be able to be self-sufficient when it comes to tomato production. As we speak, there are certain irrigation facilities around the country where there are trials going on with different varieties of tomatoes to see how best we can commercialize them. Tomorrow to Friday, I'll be around some of these irrigation schemes to see how far they've gone. In certain areas, they've even started harvesting some of the tomatoes. But also, we should also understand that we came to power last year. This is our second dry season. And so, like I said yesterday, by the end of this year, where we are beginning the third dry season, I'm sure we'll be able to scale up production. And then hopefully, by 2 years' time, we'll be able to cut the importation of tomatoes by 20 or 30%. And so that is the aim and that is the goal.
Okay, let's get a few things clear. So you're talking about some irrigation facilities that you're revamping with a view of making sure we're able to produce all year round. What facilities are we talking about? We also would want to know so we can visit these facilities and brief our listeners on them.
When you go to the Ashanti region, their Commandant irrigation scheme, they are doing some trials there. When you go to the Tono Dam in the north, they are doing some trials there with the FSRP. When you go to Garu, there's an irrigation facility there that they are also doing some tomato production.
Okay. So these trials that we're doing, John, what's the plan? How many more tons of tomatoes do we intend to produce?
Our yearly demand is almost 800,000 metric tons. And hopefully by the end of 2-3 years, we should be doing about 200,000 or 300,000 metric tons, especially in the dry season. It will also interest you to know that we've selected some few farmers across the country where we've given them, or we're about to give them, the solar-powered boreholes. And we've also distributed some water pumps across some of these farmers' organizations across. 2 days ago, I was in the eastern region to meet the vegetable farmers in the Kowu and Afram Plains area, and I assured them that government is going to support them to be able to increase or scale up their production, especially during the dry season.
Now, if our consumption is about 800,000 metric tons and we produce 400,000 metric tons, which means we have a deficit of 400,000 metric tons. The Chamber of Agribusiness estimates that we lose between 35 to 40% of our local production. Some put it at 50%, but even if to go with, say, 30, you're looking at 150,000 metric tons that is lost. So you have 250,000 metric tons. Now, if we're looking at increasing production by 200,000 metric tons within 2 to 3 years, that still doesn't make us self-sufficient, John.
No, it doesn't. But if you look at how agric works, there are times when there's research and development. There are times when there are some trials, and it's going to take some time. Example, just like we are doing with the Akokon Ketekete policy, where we want to eventually stop the importation of poultry products. I mean, it's going to take a couple of years for us to reach that point. And it's the same with the tomatoes. But I can assure you that if we continue how we are doing now in terms of the trials and the research and everything that we are doing, I should think that in about 5 or 6 years, we should stop the total importation of tomatoes from Burkina Faso and neighboring countries.
Now, these women are concerned. The traders are concerned. Ghanaians are concerned because, the fear is the area, and the Tetao area, as you would know, is actually the hub of domestic and regional trade in tomatoes. But that's an area that's also controlled by terrorists. So if we're going to be going there, we're going to go to other areas. Automatically, if I were a trader in tomatoes, this risk alone is enough reason for me to increase it a little bit. And that in itself will lead to challenges. So what's the...
Yesterday, I had a brief meeting with my colleague, the Deputy Minister of Interior, and we had a tete-a-tete about it. We are trying to, or he is trying to, or his ministry is in talks with the security personnel in the Burkina Faso side to be able to give some of the tomato traders some form of security to be able to go in and out and trade. Our security jurisdiction ends at the border, and after that, it's taken over by the Ouagadougou officials. And so that's the kind of talks that we are into. And hopefully, in the next couple of days, we would have a clear roadmap as to how we can let these traders go in and out and trade the tomatoes.
Honorable Minister, this is Kojo Akoto-Boateng here. You mentioned that we are running trials, new varieties and all that. Is it really a varietal issue, or is a problem to do with infrastructure and the structures to enable us actually increase our yield? Because I know that we have different varieties that have been tried over the years in the country that are being planted, Petomek, Raja this, and all those things. But do we have enough irrigated land, enough infrastructure, cold chain, dry chain, to support the industry to thrive?
That's an interesting question, because if you look at the whole value chain, we cannot just concentrate on one and isolate the other. And you are right. When it comes to tomato production or vegetable production, all the sectors of the value chain has to be greatly enhanced. Yes, we do have some varieties that are on the market that need to be commercialized according to the research institutions around. And then also we enhance our irrigation schemes around. And then most importantly also, when it comes to the agric ministry, we are asking the farmers to form cooperatives so that when we are bringing help or we are bringing some sort of support, we know it's easily targeted. And then, of course, we also have to have some kind of storage facilities across the country. And so if you look at it, yes, it's a long value chain, but the most important one is getting the right varieties to plant, getting the right inputs to give to the farmers, and then also getting the right irrigation schemes around up and running for us to be able to have full production.
Okay. Now, on irrigation, when your government took over, you launched the Irrigation for Wealth Creation Phase 1, and you were targeting to build 10,000 hectares in 8 regions. Because you mentioned Akomadan earlier, let me refer to the Akomadan irrigation scheme. There was a research done to take inventory of our irrigation schemes. And Akomadan, which has a potential area of 1,000 hectares, started in 1974. To the best of my knowledge, just about 65 to 100 hectares of this 1,000 hectares have been developed. Your government targeted to develop 10,000 hectares. We are in the second year of your government. How many hectares of this have you developed for farmers?
Kojo, when it comes to irrigation schemes, it's a whole process. It's about feasibility studies. It's about getting the right financing. It's about hitting the ground running. But as we speak, we are literally on maybe the first or second stage where we are done with the feasibility studies, we are looking for the right financing to be able to kickstart all the projects.
So the 10,000 you announced that you develop, have we started, or we are yet to start the actual development?
No, we've started some of the developments.
Okay.
And in the next few days, I can share with you some of the areas that we've started the development.
Okay. Now, traders are saying they won't go to Burkina Faso to bring us tomatoes for the season because of what is happening. Do we have any other alternative sources of getting fresh tomatoes for the Ghanaian public?
Yes, that's how come tomorrow I'll be up north to engage some of the tomato farmers around to be able to scale up as soon as possible. But of course, scaling up, it will take like 2 or 3 months. But in the interim, we are depending on the Interior Ministry to see how best they can give some security enforcement to some of these traders to, at least for the time being, let in some of the tomatoes from Burkina Faso.
Okay. And your irrigation support for the farmers, when are you starting that? You said you are going to give out some solar powered boreholes to farmers. When should they expect those?
We actually started last year, where we gave out some quote unquote galamsey water pumps that were seized by the Natural Resources Ministry. We distributed over 1,000 of the water pumps across some of the regions, to the farmers. With the solar powered water pumps, we're going to start in the next few months across the country as well.
And these will be distributed to areas with water?
Yes.
And you've done the full feasibility, so we know that once the pumps go in, there will be water to be pumped.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Okay. Now, we've also seen that the rainfall pattern has changed. Even this month it's been raining. Do we have a good sense on how the climate is going to be this year for farmers, knowing that 95% of us are rain-fed farmers? What should our Ghanaian farmers prepare for this year as the season comes up?
Well, last year the rains were very good to us. It literally rained, let's say, the whole year. This year we've also seen, like you said, the rains have come in a little bit earlier, and we hope it will continue this dry season right into the raining season. But we are just anticipating that we'll have a good rainfall pattern this year. But the most important question is we need to be able to, of course, empower the buffer stock, so that when there's another buffer, we'll be able to buy the excesses from these farmers, one. And then number two, to as quickly as possible set up processing plants. I know for a fact that my minister, Honorable Eric Opoku, cut sword for a tomato processing plant in Asante North. Hopefully this year it should be in place. And we are just looking for other private partnerships to come on board so that we'll be able to process the excesses so that we don't lose them to post-harvest losses. Okay,
that's good to know. Excesses. Have you mopped up all the maize so far?
Not yet.
How much more maize do we have in the system to mop up? Do we know?
I don't have the exact quantity at hand, but I do know that there's quite a large number of maize on the market that we need to mop up.
Will the Agric Minister consider advising the Ministry of Trade and the government in general to put on to introduce import quotas for maize and rice? Because maize farmers are all complaining that because imported maize and imported rice is cheaper, they're unable to sell what they are producing here. Have you considered that in your deliberations as a ministry?
Oh yes, we have. We've had some couple of import permits that we've been able to put on hold, because if you look at the excesses that we have in the market, it doesn't quote unquote become relevant to still import some of these rice and cereals. And so yes, there's some level of restriction going on, and we hope and pray that when we're able to mop up these excesses, we'll allow them to come in.
All right, John Dumelo, thank you very, very much for making time to join us here on the Super Morning Show. You should come to the studio. But quick one, are there plans to establish farmers' markets within the various communities?
Oh yes, there are plans to establish farmers' markets within the various communities. Hopefully, by middle or end of this year, those farmers' markets should be fully operational. And so that's something we are greatly and what do you call it? Quickly working on.
You say hopefully by what, middle or end of the year? I want to be able
Yes.
to come back and check when.
That's why I'm being careful with my words, so that when you come and you check, you won't put me in check. So,
So let's get a specific date.
end of the year.
End of the year.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you very, very much. John Dumelo is Deputy Agric Minister and
Ask
Member
him
of
when
Parliament.
he's coming to the studio, you know.
Yes, John, when are we having you in studio?
Oh, when I have some of the nkukong kitikiti and the eggs and the
We already have
food
nkoko to
items.
eat. We have nkoko to eat, so you don't need to bring us nkoko.
Okay.
We want
Then
you
when
to
I come back from the north with tomatoes, I'll come to the studio.
That would be great. That's the Deputy Agric Minister and Member of Parliament for Ayawaso West Wogon. So, Kojo, we're looking at 5 years to be sufficient when it comes to tomato production. Within the next 2 to 3 years, we're looking at increasing production by some 200,000 metric tons. And that, as we've put out, would not help us.
Yeah.
But because I know you've been conducting a lot of research into tomatoes, what do we need to be self-sufficient?
We need irrigated lands. We need that. Our irrigation penetration in the country is just about 5%. Even that, sometimes I think it's overestimated. We need irrigated lands, and I always make examples. In fact, let's talk about Titao. Titao is in northern Burkina Faso. There is a water body, a lake of sorts, and the people have developed lands around this lake, and then they pump water. They do a lot of drip and sprinkler irrigation. So all year round, even though that is northern Burkina, almost a desert area, all year round, because they have water, they're able to give water to their plants, so they're able to grow tomatoes. And we will drive our cars 1,200, 1,400 kilometers from Accra to Titao to buy tomatoes and bring it down to eat. We have water. We have the resources. The reason why I mentioned Akomadan when we were talking to the Honorable John Dumelo is that there was an inventory of irrigation and drainage facilities in the country. So we listed all the irrigation and drainage sites. And if you look at the capacity we have, that is abandoned in the bush because consistently we are not investing in irrigation. It's very sad. And without irrigation, you are only left to the elements, right? So if it rains, rainy season, we'll plant tomatoes. We'll get a lot of tomatoes. And then 50% will rot because there's a bumper harvest. We can't consume them immediately. Unfortunately, almost all your tomato processing factories are not processing local tomatoes. They are bringing in tomato concentrate and other things to process and sell within the country. And that tomato concentrate is not from here. So when there's a bumper harvest, in any sane market, what you do is a principle of Joseph and Pharaoh. God said, I'm going to give you rain for 7 years. So the 7 years, they planted, they dried, they stored. In the 7 years of lean season, they had food. That's the same principle. Rainy season, we get water. We plant vegetables, but we've not invested in any processing, any storage capacity. So they rot. So one, I think we need to develop more lands, irrigated lands, so that we can plant all year round and actually schedule our planting so that we can have tomatoes flowing into our kitchens all year round. Number two, we need to invest in post-harvest technology. And for me, there are two things for me. Post-harvest, there is a dry chain and the cold chain. God placed us in the tropics. Our maize, when we plant it, what do? We dry it, right? Mm-hmm. You reduce the water and then you can store it for long. The presence of water means microbes can act on the organic material and make them go bad. It's the same thing. You can do same for tomatoes. You can slice tomatoes and dry them. Tomatoes usually would have between 90 to 95% water. So once you dry them and you take out the water, you can pack them in vacuum sealed bags or in whatever airtight containers and store them. in the dry season when you don't have tomato, the same dry tomato, you put them in your blender, you add water to it, you reconstitute it, you get 100% tomato paste. You can use it to cook and do all sorts of things. In other places, the dry tomato, they put them in olive oil and all sorts of oils and store. And this dryness is a global thing. Go to the Californian desert, you go to Spain, you go to Italy, go to all places, they dry tomatoes. And then there's the cold chain, what we call the tomato purees and the tomato paste and the tomato mix products. We need to also build capacity to be able to do that. If it means that we change our regulations as standards authority, we must change our regulations. Because if you look at the standards authority regulations for tomato mix and tomato paste, for example, if you have regulation that enjoins processors to make tomato mix products using only about 7% natural tomato content, right? It means that other things are filling up that can. But if we changed our regulation, for example, and said tomato paste should have 50% actual tomato, okay, the companies importing tomato concentrates may have a challenge bringing all these things in. Maybe they will now think about buying tomato from the market when we have a bumper season and convert it into concentrate and use it across the year. Maybe, just maybe. So we have to use a mix of investments in developed lands. When it comes to inputs, I don't want to talk about input because I am a student of the CSIR. I study CSIR every time and the things they're doing. They've done enough research when it comes to seed varieties. Yeah. There's even CSIR Kwabna and a lot of things. And they are high yielding varieties that can be planted in our system. So when it comes to input, push some small money to CSIR. Let them keep improving the varieties we have. When it comes to stuff like plant nutrition, we are investing in Nkoko Nkete and we are investing in the poultry value chain. It's one opportunity to get a lot of organic material. If we also look at, say, the other value chains, the rice and the other, we'll get a lot of organic material to convert into organic fertilizer. Then we import inorganic fertilizer to supplement some of these things. You have companies in Ghana like OFA, Organic Fertilizer for Africa, which was actually developed by CSIR, and a private businessman has commercialized it. You have different products in the country, so inputs isn't a problem as much. But let's get land developed. If you have more than 1,000 hectares and only about 100 hectares is properly developed for farming, it means you're underutilizing the land. You go to Wager, there's encroachment. You go to Dowenya, encroachment. You go to Veta, Afife. You go to Akuse. Look at Akuse and the other town, the one that starts with S, where we grow rice. The regional ministers
Somanya.
No,
Shai Osudoku area.
The Shai Osudoku area. You have one of the biggest irrigation schemes in the country. You don't have proper roads leading there. Mm-hmm. So we are growing
I know that area.
A lot of rice. We are growing a lot of vegetables. We are growing fish. You don't have vehicles going there. So Nkrumah started irrigation. A champion came to grow it a bit further. Rawlings added on. Kufuor improved some. Akufo-Addo tried one district, one village, one dam, and also tried to do the economic enclaves project. Now this new government also says they are doing 10,000 hectares of developed land, but most of them end up being on paper.
Look,
most of them don't see the look, and people elsewhere, Winston, people elsewhere. Look, there's this place we visited in Egypt. It's in the southwestern part of Egypt. Over 700,000 acres of developed lands. They are pumping water from the Nile and drawing water from underground sources. Greater Accra region is 750,000 acres. Developed land for irrigation and farming in Egypt, in the desert, 700,000 acres with an airstrip and plains land every now and again to take fresh fruits and fresh produce out to sell. Why can't we do same? What's wrong with us?
Mr. Morin says, could you has a point on drying tomatoes? I have advocated this, for the past 20 years that we should have 20 containers on trucks with some tomato preservation machines to go around the producing areas to mop up the excess during the glut season. And that's my suggestion. And he also started with this. My understanding from the interaction with women in Techiman market years ago revealed that the challenge is the variety of tomatoes. The women said the tomatoes from Burkina Faso had less water content as against the varieties from Ghana, which contain too much water. Because the Burkina Faso contains less water, it has a longer shelf life. So when the women buy from the farms, they don't spoil by the time they get to their destination compared to the Ghanaian variety. The situation can become disastrous with the Ghanaian variety if the truck breaks down on the way. The women claim that the Ghanaian variety, the risk of complete loss of their load is extremely high compared with the Burkina Faso variety.
There are different things to say about tomatoes. For example, how do we harvest tomatoes in this country for the market? Some women come to the farm and they want the tomatoes harvested when ripe because they want to just go and sell. But look at tomato value chains across the world and how some of them do it. Sometimes when the tomato just breaks color, okay, it's green, it breaks color, you see some orange color change coming, or you will harvest, because at that point the chemical that enables ripening has started acting on the tomato. So if I am buying tomatoes from, say, Akomadan and transporting it to Accra, I would have them harvest tomato that has broken color, and then I'll pack those, because on my way here the ripening process will continue. If it doesn't continue, I bring it to my cold room or my warehouse. I can actually induce ripening by using the right organic chemicals to induce ripening. We need to do all these things and build capacity, train our market women, let them understand some of the science behind ripening, the science behind. We always say, oh, Burkina Faso tomato doesn't contain a lot of water. But any scientist who looks at tomatoes will tell you tomato contains, let's say, 85 to 95% of water. The change sometimes is just about 5%, depending on the variety. So for me, I still don't think it's a varietal issue to be discussed. How about the tomatoes we produce in Dawenya? The tomatoes we produce in Dawenya. If it's varietal, we need fresh tomatoes to eat right now. So why don't we have enough developed lands in Dawenya for us to produce a tomato that will feed Accra? If you go to Volta region, Danloga area, the Way, Anloga, Keta, Jita, all those Anyanui areas, people are farming tomatoes in the sea sand. on you know that beach sand.
That area, yeah.
They have drilled boreholes and they are farming tomatoes, just like people farm tomatoes in the desert. It's infrastructure. But our government will say we are building roads. And forgive me if I always use big push, because I think that roads must lead to productive centers of the economy. So if you are building roads and you are not developing land, you are not investing in irrigation, what are you doing? And look, Winston, to develop land for agric, you do farming. If you have 1 acre of land and you want to clear it with a machine, how much does it cost you? Then when you finish, you have to drill your borehole, do your drip irrigation. We spend money on a lot of things that don't give us returns. And if you like, I can give you examples. Should I?
Go ahead.
Should I give you examples? Mm-hmm. Look at how much money we spend. I was going to talk about what do you call it? National Cathedral, but let me spare it. Let me spare the National Cathedral. Now, Speaker of Parliament says we want a new Chamber of Parliament. Speaker of Parliament says we want a new Chamber of Parliament. I'm sure parliamentarians will push it through. And then you will spend about $300 million to build a new Chamber of Parliament. What is wrong with our current Chamber of Parliament? And what can the $300 million do for food security, for example? We seem to want to spend money on all sorts of things, but the core things that sustain us as a people. We want to throw money at almost everything without thinking about the core things that sustain us as a people. Are we happy that our compatriots will travel 1,500 kilometers to a war zone to go and bring tomatoes to the country because somebody there developed irrigation for them? Go to the Tono irrigation scheme. It's facing challenges. What improvements have we made in the irrigation scheme to ensure that we expand for people to farm all year round? And Ghana is one of the countries blessed with a lot of water resources. So what really is the problem? So I think that, look, 24-hour economy. We are going to do 24-hour economy. We are going to do Abledo. We are going to do this. We are going to do that. Let us really sit down and ask ourselves, what does Ghana need? how do we provide what Ghana needs? And how do we ensure that when we provide it, it will be sustainable to take care of us now, take care of the generations yet unborn, and actually make Ghana a center of excellence?
Good question. But you see, you've talked about, the Agbadu and all of that. And I have said something before, and I repeat it. If we want to be sufficient, if we release funds to our financial institutions today and get people to bring their plans, the financial institutions will look at it and release funds to them. Now, these funds we're going to release to the financial institutions should be funds that we don't start by playing politics with and say, government, the way we do it, government has released these funds to do this. Because then all of a sudden, once funds are released and are seen as political funds, those who assess the funds don't want to pay. But let's just get, release funds to financial institutions and let them give these funds to people to produce. Could you be surprised? Why? The MasterCard Foundation is doing that. And they actually can get in touch with you and say, you are a farmer. We have a facility for you. Share with us, your cash flow statement. Share with us your business plan. And let's see how much we can give you. Because the point is, what we have done over the period, again, is we've always looked at how we can make, quote unquote, money. What we've done over the period is to look at the procurement aspect. So whenever we're talking about, we need to do this, we need to do that, it's the procurement. So if we're leading procurement, so whoever leads the procurement gets to make money at the end of the day, unfortunately. I think that we've reached the stage, I am of the view that we've reached the stage where government should no longer be seen leading these things. Government should make funds available to financial institutions. These financial institutions would give it to those who need it, haven't done the assessment. Because at the end of it, the financial institutions must pay back to government. They can keep a bit of the interest. So they'll do the assessment and say, look, maybe Winston needs this. Maybe, Winston wrote and said he needed 2 million. But based on our assessment and based on even on the plan he shared with us, maybe we should give him, say, 3 million. Or maybe we give him 500,000. He doesn't need 2 million Ghana cedis. That is where I think we should focus on. Because, look, I've told you that years ago I planted maize. And when I planted maize, I 20 acres, left the maize on this thing, waiting for it to dry. Because then, at the time in the Volta region, we're told there was one dryer. So
a dryer.
Dryer.
Do you know how much it costs to get, say, a 1 ton dehydrator that can dry 1 ton of tomatoes every single day?
Tell me.
$5,000.
Well, so
5,000. Go to Alibaba right now and check.
So we while we're trying to book, look, the period we kept the plant on tree on in the farm, and by the time we realized we had lost practically everything. And I was concerned because, look, when we went for even the seedlings, the seedlings that we went for, we were not even
the
educated
seeds for the maize.
For the maize,
yeah,
we're not educated on the kind of seeds that we had gone for. The variety that we had gone for. And because if we knew this is the variety we had, we'd have tried making bookings way before, the maize were, were okay for harvesting. But anyway, that's something that we lost. The lessons from that led me into pig farming. We'll take it like that.
At this particular point, I'm thinking somebody in government will say, so tomato production is a problem. We have water. We have machines. Do you know how much we spend bringing in the drip machines?
Tell me.
We've spent millions of dollars bringing in drip machines, and it will interest you to know that drip didn't start with Akufo-Addo. Mahama's first administration, he brought machines in. They didn't name them, brand them as drip. It was the same Neil Ante van der Poel who was coordinator for drip. So you brought machines that we can use to develop roads, develop lands. They've been packed at the various assemblies. People want to farm. Any system that wants results would actually be looking at how we use the drip to immediately hit the ground. Start developing lands for people so that when the rain sets in, they can farm. When we get money, we can do irrigation for them so that they can farm all year round. How does it make sense that somebody sitting in Egypt developed an area which is bigger than Greater Accra region and is farming on it and exporting to Europe, and you have water all year round? all year round, and you can't farm something as simple as tomatoes, which when you plant within 85 days at worst you'll be harvesting.